Well, we missed him a week ago. We can't miss him this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Staton from SeahawksDraftBlog.com. He covers all things Seahawks. He's with us every single week, brought to you by Superior Linen Services. You can follow, again, Rob, on social media, Rob Staton, also his YouTube page, Rob Staton Football. I feels like it's been months since we've talked, but I think it's a week. That's it.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm in Sweden next week, Puck. So,
how are you? Sweden.
Yes, Sweden.
On holiday or what?
Yeah, well, I wanted to go somewhere warm.
Yeah.
And my wife decided we were going to go to Sweden instead. So we're going somewhere very cold. And,
So your wife runs the household just like my wife runs the household here.
Well, typically, no. But she somehow managed to convince me this was a fantastic idea. And we're going. So there we are. So
okay.
we're going to Sweden.
I think you're going to have a fabulous time. All right. Well, there's been some additions to the team since we last spoke. Let's first start with a guy that I think we've talked about before. I don't know if we ever did talk about Cooper Kupp. What do you make of Cooper Kupp and the signing with the Seahawks? Yay, nay?
I mean, I don't think it's going to change the world for the Seahawks. I don't think it's a problem. The contract details have now emerged today, so I think it's a very reasonable short-term arrangement with a player who will be very motivated. I think it's a bit like when Richard Sherman went to San Francisco when he was cut. He will come to Seattle, be very motivated. I was speaking to somebody I know who actually worked with Cooper Kupp when he was at Eastern Washington, and he said that he's a tremendous pro, that he's going to have a huge influence on Jackson Smith and Jigba. Will probably help him elevate to take the next level, the next step in his career. So I think it's a positive move. Again, I think as long as you keep your expectations relatively modest for Cooper Kupp, then this will be an okay signing, which if you can get us, 900 yards, few touchdowns, I think, fair enough.
What about the, we'll get to DK in a second. What about the overall just wide receiver room right now? How would you classify it? Incomplete?
Very much so. I think they need to go and get a receiver in the first 3 rounds. Not the first pick, though. Please, can we stop with the mock drafts, put in a receiver at 18? I mean, you and I, we sort of live in this Seahawks world, so we know that they've been saying what kind of team they want to be for months.
Right.
The idea of them going and drafting a receiver at 18 doesn't make any sense. The receivers who are being projected to go in the first round don't make any sense because they're not the kind of personalities and individuals that the Seahawks are going to want to take in round 1 anyway. But round 2, you've got 2 picks there. I think that could easily be either a receiver or a receiving tight end. And then you look in round 3, you've got 2 picks there. That's a good range to look at receiver as well. Even in round 4, there's a whole bunch of options in that sort of round 2 to round 4 range. They will draft somebody, but what I think, Puck, is that this will be a transformation of the offense where Smith and Jigba will be your main guy, Kupp will be your number 2, there'll be a young guy as a number 3, Marcus Valdes-Scantling will be the number 4, and the emphasis will very much be on the running game and I think on the tight end position.
So you look at, you mentioned Kupp's details coming out. We've been waiting for these details to come out. Everyone knew it was a 3-year, $45 million deal. And again, all you're really concerned about, you look at these things as the guaranteed money, $26.5 million guaranteed. Does that kind of jive of what you thought someone like Kupp would earn?
Yeah, and I think it's very much a contract that I think, I can actually have a look at the details now, that will be easy for the Seahawks if they need to move on from. It's not going to be the kind of commitment whereby they are locked into anything. When the initial contract came out, it was something like 3 years, tens of millions of dollars.
Sure.
So I'm looking at it now. So he's got a cap hit of $9.3 million this year, which is completely reasonable for a dice roll on Cooper Kupp. And then next year, if you wanted to move on, you can save $9.5 million and you take an $8 million dead cap hit. And when you have, and you can even split that in 2 if you could impose June 1st. So if you're going to do all of that, Puck, really with all of the cap space the Seahawks have got next year, to lose $8 million on Cooper Kupp, it's not ideal. But if you have to move on, you can. And if you don't have to move on, then you've got him for 2 years and here we go. So I think it's a fair enough move.
I apologize if I'm going to ask you. I'm going to repeat a question. I'm getting older, Rob. Okay, so sometimes I forget. Okay, I know. But when you're going through the wide receivers, is there a wide receiver you have in mind that fits them?
There's a few. I mean, it's
in that range that you talked about.
Yeah, there is a few.
Okay,
so. And look, it's not a brilliant receiver class, but there are players that I really like. So in round 2, Jack Besh for me is just the body control, the concentration, the ball tracking ability, the suddenness to run a slant and create easy separation, but also to get downfield and make some big plays. Just plays his arse off. Jack Besh for me is somebody that 50 or 52, if he lasts that far, I think he's got the potential to be a really good player. A bit like Jordy Nelson for the Packers, who John Schneider really likes. So I think that's one name. And then you look at Jalen Noel. The drops are a concern, but there's so much about his profile that is interesting. His teammate at Iowa State, Jaden Higgins, is a bigger receiver, 6'4", a bit more consistent, a little less spectacular for me, but more of an outside type. You've got Cal Williams, who you know very, very well, had a sensational Senior Bowl. Easy separation again, just sort of the one player. There's always one player at the Senior Bowl, I think, at receiver. Maybe not last year, but this year, the one receiver who just looked the part was Cal Williams. So I think that Cal Williams, round 3, could be a really good pickup for the Seahawks there. There's Torrey Horton at Colorado State, 2-time captain, the kind of character they like, quick, very consistent, can get downfield. Ty Felton at Maryland is, has a little bit of, is a bit quicker than Tyler Lockett, but kind of reminded me of a similar type of player to that. So, and there are others. There's Elik Ayamano from Stanford could be interesting for them. A lot of people seem to like Savion Williams, even though you kind of never know what he's going to do next. So there's a whole bunch of players. The Seahawks will get a receiver at some point. It's just, who are they going to get?
DK Metcalf, did it? I'm sure you've seen the comments or heard the comments that he had with Michael Robinson and Marshawn Lynch, and describing just kind of working there with Ryan Grubb. You and I think we went back and forth on this one, even probably disagreed to a point about Ryan Grubb. And as more evidence comes out, I mean, clearly, and it's always okay to admit you're wrong about something. Like, I thought it was wanted to give him another year. Let's see what he could do in year 2. But ultimately, just listening to Metcalf, even though he's not here anymore, describe it, certainly was the right decision to move on from Ryan Grubb.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of DK Metcalf rushing to the podcast within 3 weeks of leaving, though.
What if he was on your podcast?
Well, that'd be a completely different kettle of fish. Then I'd say, thank you very much, DK Metcalf, for this exclusive interview. But
that would be great.
Alas, he was not. So I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I think we could all kind of see that they fired Grubb for a reason. So it was obvious there was something not quite right there. I don't think DK Metcalf needed to spell it out. I also don't think he needed to try and make out that he and Gino were best buds, because I know that wasn't true, because someone's told me that wasn't true. And I've had it validated by other people that they didn't see eye to eye at various times during that. And he sat there going, me and Gino did this and we would work on this. I'm thinking, pull the other one, DK Metcalf. And then little comments like the grass is greener. Well, the only thing I think with DK Metcalf is you've got a big load of money now. And that's fair enough. He's got a great contract. Fair play. I'm not going to begrudge him that. But there's this player called Russell Wilson who was very keen to leave Seattle a few years ago.
Sure.
And he's very well paid, very well compensated, but his career has not worked out. And if he had stayed in Seattle throughout his time, the chances are I think he would have had a better chance of the Hall of Fame. He would have been revered in Seattle forever. It would have been number retired. It would have been Ring of Honor. And those things may well have gone now for him. And DK Metcalf's now going to go to Pittsburgh, and all of the Steelers fans are going to go, we're paying you an absolute fortune, and we gave up a second-round pick for you. We're going to expect 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns next year. There's going to be an awful lot of pressure on him. And as of right now, Mason Rudolph is throwing him the football. So I think, yes, financially well compensated. And if that's what he's referring to, maybe the grass is greener. But that situation in Pittsburgh,
I think that's
tricky.
Ultimately what it was, though. I mean, yeah. I know that there is and I'm not doubting that there is a desire to win and compete and win championships. I wouldn't ever say the player doesn't want those things. But I think, like a lot of people, what they want, whatever job you do, they just happen to be paid a lot more than we are. They want financial security. and they want to maximize and earn as much money as they possibly can.
I think the Seahawks would have paid him, by the way. I think he wanted out.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to be a fly on the wall when Schneider and him, which had a great relationship by all indications. You know, what was broken? What was so broken between the two that they couldn't resolve?
I think a bit of it was Geno Smith. I don't think that DK and Geno were that close. And I think he probably wanted to move on partly because of that. I think he's maybe been angling for this for a while. I don't really know why.
Just loves Pete Carroll. Maybe it's his admiration so much for Pete Carroll.
Maybe it was when Pete left. He feels that he was time for a change. I think the Seahawks are quite determined to have him because they've been so positive about him and getting a deal done for a long time and talking about Clint Kubiak coming in. And I know there's a Lions season and all of that, but I think they meant it with DK. And do you know what else that was quite telling? Was that number 14 jersey was not vacant for very long. It was very quickly and publicly made clear, Sam Darnold's our new number 14.
Sure.
Because, and John Schneider made some slightly pointed comments about we want players who want to be here.
Want to be here,
and then that number 7 jersey, that didn't last very long either. That seems to be now owned by Cheddar and Wosu, who's just took a pay cut to stay in Seattle. And they made a very big play about the fact that Cheddar's wearing number 7 now, which was Geno's number. So
yeah, that's because they posted. That's because they had Cooper Kupp posting the number 10
and he took number 7. And I just think it's interesting that those two numbers have been filled quickly by players who seem committed to the cause. So I think DK and Geno were ready to move on for different reasons.
Yeah, and I'd mistakenly said earlier, maybe DK wanted to play for Pete Carroll. I mean, DK's in Pittsburgh. It was just kind of getting mixed up there with Geno going to the Raiders. But, I mean, maybe just the messaging. He talked about that. Hey, listen, I'm used to a certain way to be coached, and then Mike McDonald comes in. It's different. It's probably a little bit more serious, a little bit more demanding. Not to say that Pete Carroll wasn't demanding. I just think the messaging is different, and I think Mike McDonald's just like kind of a little bit more. There's a little, feels like, not knowing him at all or seeing the way he interacts with players behind the scenes, it's just a little bit more old school. Maybe for DK that just wasn't a fit for him.
Well, good luck in Pittsburgh because Mike Tomlin's not like Pete Carroll.
No, he's not. No, he's not. What? So we've had a good chunk of time so far during the offseason. We're less than a month away from the NFL draft. We love doing grades, and you don't have to do a grade, but even though I have it up there on the rundown, how would you evaluate their offseason? If you want to give a grade, great. You don't have to. But how would you describe their offseason so far?
Well, I've liked it because I think firstly, it's been interesting. You know, it's more interesting than doing nothing and sitting around and not having anything to talk about. We've all had plenty to discuss.
It's great for us.
It's great. You know, I like the fact they've got 5 picks in the top 100 because I write a draft blog, and it's not just that. You know, I understand the opportunity that is there with these 5 picks and the players. I've studied them. I like the fact that I think they've got a quarterback in Sam Darnold who is of a similar quality to Geno Smith, who is cheaper, and they've got a 3rd-round pick out of it. So I think that was a good move. I think pivoting from DK Metcalf and getting a 2nd-round pick in this draft is a good move. So I think all of that is good moves. Obviously, we all wanted the offensive line to be addressed, and if they'd assigned Will Fries, it would have been an A+. But I also understand why they didn't sign Will Fries, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that one, because I don't think it would have been wise to do that deal without a medical. So I think provided they fix this line in the draft, which I think they can do, I think there's some very good options in this draft. I think it could end up being an A off-season. Right now, I'd say a B+, because there's still the glaring issue of the offensive line, but I fully expect them to make some moves there and it look improved in a month's time. So I'm going to say B+ for now.
B+. I'm with you. I think, we are in the sports entertainment business. So any type of entertainment they can provide, any team, I don't care what team it is, and content like they've provided this offseason, fucking great. It's just great because there's always something to talk about with what they have done. My only thing, we'll get to the next one was a mistake on the offensive line. It's not so much a player. It's not Will Fries. It's not Dahlman. It's just nothing. That's my, and maybe you can counter that with, well, there just isn't any players out there that are good. That is my offseason. I like the Sam Darnold thing. I'm excited about Sam Darnold. But I think just still haven't adequately addressed this line yet. And they were going to the draft, and now you're starting to hear this like talk of, well, wait till these new coaches get their hands on these players that they already have. That concerns me because it sounds very much like how the Mariners treated their offseason. Well, we're going to have these bounce-back seasons for these guys. And maybe, Rob, there's some truth to that. Maybe these coaches like the talent they have on the offensive line, and it was bad coaching, and they're going to get something out of it. Okay, I think players can always improve, no doubt about it. I just think at times that's a gamble. You run a risk of that's your offseason plan. Well, we have new coaches. They should help, X, Y, and Z. But
I think they have to say a bit of that right now because there's no alternative because that's all they can say. And a year ago, as someone who thought Christian Haynes was well worth a third-round pick, I think it's only fair that he gets a chance with his staff to see how he works out. They've got to get a left guard. They've got to add something at centre, I think. And I think that's the positive thing. When I look at the free agency, we talked about Will Fries, really liked Will Fries, really liked Drew Dolman. It seemed as if Dolman was, I think people went to the combine, hey, how much is it going to take to get Drew here? He signed him for the Bears. That was kind of like the feeling with it. And with Will Fries, it was a bit like, yeah, he'll go to the Seattle, but, oh, look, Minnesota's come. They're going to do this without a medical. We'll just go there and sign the deal. And then you look, and then you've got Mekhi Becton was never coming because John Benson was his coach at New York when he was basically not giving a crap and not putting any effort in and ruining his career. So he was never going to come. Tevin Jenkins is injured all the time. The Bears have actively replaced him. He was never going to come. They had a look at him, but that was never really going to happen. And then you've got a whole bunch of scrubs, essentially. Could they have gone and got Joe Tooney? I'd have loved that. But, the GM has a relationship with the GM in Kansas City. Have they helped each other out there? I don't know. Maybe. That was one that I would have liked them to do. But then I look at this draft and I see your Zabels, I see your Tyler Bookers, I see... I'm not going to run through the entire list of offensive linemen. Chase Lunt. If people wanted some, I like to give a name for people to go and have a look at. I've put some clips on the blog. Go and have a look at Chase Lunt, the most violent offensive lineman in this draft. Perfect zone blocker. That's the kind of player you can get in the middle rounds who can come in and, for me, be an exceptional starter. And that's what John Schneider says. He says, we want to be a great team, not an average team. And I think if you sign Tevin Jenkins and you sign Dylan Radens, you're not improving, you're not fixing anything. You might as well just give Haynes and Oluwatimi and Bradford another go. You want to get better. And I think that's what the draft's going to be about. And if they can do this, if they can get the next Landon Dickerson, if they can get the Cam Jurgens, I love both of those players, it's not hindsight. I think there are players of that level in this draft. You can get those players. We're having a very different conversation about this offensive line in a few months.
All right, your latest mock draft. Right now, we're less than a month away, barely less than a month away. 18 Seattle selects.
I think it's going to be. I think the Zabel's the really good chance that he's the 18th pick. There is a couple of alternatives. If Malachi Starks lasts to 18, they might go in that direction. I think Donovan Ezeraku is a kind of player that they like to draft as well. But I think Zabel feels like an obvious fit. I think if there's certain fits in the draft that work team and player, Zabel to me is a plug and play center or guard, feels like an obvious one. I'm going to say it, not because I want it to happen. I'm just don't totally rule out they take a quarterback. The Sam Darnold contract details out. It's a 1 year, according to Over the Cap, it's a 1 year thing. If they like somebody, they may do that. I'm just saying, Shook, Darts, maybe they take a look there, but I'm going to go with Zabel there. And then I think in the second round pick, it could be sort of, they could take Marcus Bowe to play center or guard or tackle or whatever. They could take Ty Robinson. Ty Robinson is a player that I think is going to end up in Seattle. I just think he's a player who they are going to go after. So trenches, couple of high picks on the offensive line, maybe 3 picks on the offensive line. I think we will see investment there. I think after this draft, Seahawks fans will go, I like what they did.
Okay, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Staton, all brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926, committed to delivering the highest quality products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Get your free quote today at suplinen.com. Give them a call, 253-383-2636. Catch all of Rob's work up at SeahawksDraftBlog.com. He just does incredible work there. Great detail. It's updated often. Also, his video content, his YouTube channel, Rob Staton Football. Follow him on Twitter at Rob Staton, and he joins us weekly here in the Limback Lumber Studios. All right, we probably won't talk to you next week because you're being sweet on holiday, so maybe a couple weeks.
Well, we'll see. If the Wi-Fi's fine, let's make it happen. It'll be
okay. It's up to you. I don't like disturbing you on a holiday.
I'll get Benny and Sven to maybe play some music in the background and.
Enjoy yourself. We may or may not talk to you, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Rob.
Cheers.